students. I am Tulika Banerjee. Today I bring you the next learning episode on behalf of the content writers Dr. G.S. Sodhi and Deepika Bhandari on an important unit of paper Crime in Society, that is workplace violence, in which we will discuss about workplace violence, its characteristics and classification. We will also discuss about the laws against workplace violence, its sources and status of workplace violence in India. We will wind up the module with discussion on social response towards workplace crime and a case study. Let us start our module with a look at what we are going to learn today. First is introduction, then characteristics of workplace violence, classification of workplace violence, laws against workplace violence, sources of workplace violence, status of workplace violence, social response towards workplace crime, conclusion and a case study. A workplace is a temporary or permanent location where an employee executes any work-related task. It can be a building, surrounding, boundaries, parking space, field locations and client's home and travelling to and fro for work assignments. Violence or aggression incorporates physical, mental and emotional abuse to an individual or to the property by another individual or a group. The effect of violence on a victim depends on its severity or his or her experiences, skills and personality. Written abuse, verbal abuse, harassment, threats, bullying, gang up and intimidation, physical or sexual assault, armed robbery, malicious damage to property belonging to staff, customers or the business are considered as violent acts. Workplace violence may not always be significant from the start. It may sometimes follow a pattern of increasing behavior from agitation, expression of anger or frustration and intimidating body language to verbal or written abuse and threats or assaults. Violence can either be from internal or from the external sources. If we are talking about internal violence, it means violence can be caused against employees by colleagues, supervisors, managers or other staff. Common types of internal violence include harassment, bullying, peer pressure and verbal or physical abuse. Violence can be inflicted from ex-employees seeking vengeance on the business, its manager or other staff. Violence from external sources. This may be of two types. First, material gain. Offenders are motivated to seek money, drugs or precious goods. Second, non-material gain. This can include sexual abuse, hostage holding and incidental violence to other people in the area near the workplace. First is client-initiated violence. The clients, their relatives or friends may take aggressive action against the employees of an organization. Individuals who are victimized include teachers, enforcement officers and health and welfare workers. The clients committing such violent acts time and again have a history of violent behavior or related problems. Second is discrimination and harassment. In some cases, undesirable behavior by other staff, clients, customers or the general public takes the form of prejudice or verbal and sexual harassment. Although these sorts of behavior are clearly inapt and stressful, they may not always be accompanied by aggression or violence. To prevent violent behavior, non-violent discrimination or harassment should be dealt with at an early stage. Third is bullying. Workplace bullying is violent behavior that threatens, humiliates and or discourages a person or group. Bullying at workplace is defined as the unreasonable and inappropriate workplace practice involving repeated unfavorable behavior of a person or group at the workplace. Examples of workplace bullying may include yelling, screaming, verbal abuse, continuous criticism, isolation of a worker, sabotaging workers' ability to do their job, not providing vital information, appropriate training and or the resources. Bullying is an act performed by an individual or a group so as to dominate or show superiority over another person. There are no such anti-bullying laws for workplace, but there are laws against harassment at workplace. These laws include harassment by deduction of unreasonable wages by employer. First, Payment of Wages Act 1936 is intended to be a remedy against the unreasonable and unauthorized deductions made by the employer or unjustified delay in payment of wages. Second, Section 5 of the Act specifies the time of payment of wages. Timely payment of wages should be made if manpower is less than 1000, then 7th day of the month, and if more than 1000, then 10th day of the month. Section 7 to 13 defines the deductions. No reasonable and unauthorized deductions should be made from the wages. Next is harassment by sex discrimination. According to Article 39D of the Constitution and Section 2H of Equal Remuneration Act 1976, it is the duty of the employer that every employee should receive same remuneration for similar nature of work. Next, harassment by defamation. Section 499 of the IPC defines defamation if it is a criminal wrong. Otherwise, in civil cases, defamation can be included under the law of torts. Harassment by unreasonable clauses. In the Employment Agreements, Chapter 5A, Layoff and Retrenchment of Industrial Disputes Act 1947 lays down that a 30 to 90 day notice period applies in order to terminate workmen as defined in the Industrial Disputes Act 1947, that is, employees whose role is not primarily supervisory, administrative or managerial for convenience. Discrimination on grounds of pregnancy and disability. According to Maternity Benefit Act 1961, it is unlawful and unauthorized on the part of the lawyer to discharge or dismiss women when she absents herself from work within the provision of this Act. Section 24A of the Persons with Disabilities, Equal Opportunities, Protection of Rights and Full Participation Act 1995 guarantees no discrimination in employment. Workplace violence could result from certain situations. The need for personal gain or gratification. Offenders may try to acquire money, drugs or valuable goods from the business or employees. Such attacks may be arbitrary but are often planned. The offenders have the information of business that is helpful for monetary gains. They will exploit weak security and violence control measures. Offenders may not be judicious at the time of the offence, or they may be under the control of alcohol or drugs. Some sex offenders are encouraged by non-material gain. They may stalk victims, plan their attack, or may choose victims randomly under opportunistic circumstances. Working alone, leaving workplace at night and travelling home alone can be victimizing factors. Extreme cases of workplace violence may result from workers being overloaded and driven excessively or incongruously to perform by their superiors. Violence is not usually a unique occurrence. People often have a history of aggressive behavior when they commit violent acts. Second is service delivery issues. The cost, performance of the product or service, treatment by staff, repeated delays and inconvenience caused in business may leave clients unhappy. These things may not excuse violence but should be accepted as possible contributing factors to a criminal's action. Clients or customers of a service their relatives or friends may behave aggressively against the workers of an organization. In some cases, the event can come about during a single contact with the service. Although in most cases, however, violence begins after a number of smaller clashes over some time. Third is opportunism and coincidence. Violent acts like random vandalism may be committed for monetary benefits, often with little or no planning. Some smash and grab offences like shoplifting are random as an impulsive movement is brought about by an opportunity like no staff in the shop or valuables being left in a handy position. Other less common violent behavior includes holding hostages. Clients under the influence of drugs, alcohol, psychotropic substances, or in the absence of a substance, that is, withdrawal syndrome, may become violent. It is possible to have policies and procedures to prevent such events and to handle such violent situations. Incidental violence like robbery or assault by people in the area near the workplace can have the effect on the staff. They may not be physically assaulted, but they may be disturbed by witnessing the incident. Next is about industries and occupations commonly affected by workplace violence. Workplace violence can arise in any industry or occupation. However, there may be a higher risk of workplace violence if business is in one of the following industries or its workers fall into one of the following occupational categories: health and community service, doctors, nurses, ambulance officers, cashiers, welfare workers, ward helpers, accommodation service workers. Government administration and education, police officers and other government enforcement officers, school teachers, probation officers, collection agency workers, business services, particularly the finance sector, counter staff managers, transport and storage guards, bus drivers, taxi drivers, couriers, airline staff, retail trade, all sales and support staff, consumer services, hospitality staff, supervisors, administration and other occupation. Workplace violence is a significant problem in the United States today. It is being considered the third leading cause of occupational injury or death. Workplace violence includes crimes like homicide, rape, robbery and assault committed against people who are on duty. In 2009, approximately 5,72,000 non-lethal violent crimes like sexual assault, robbery, aggravated and simple assaults occurred against people aged 16 years or older while they were at work or on duty. Assaults, both simple and aggravated, account for the largest number of workplace violence incidents, affecting approximately 117 out of every 1,000 persons in the workforce annually. Another 520 or so work-related homicides occur annually. About 70% of workplace homicides were perpetrated by work associates between 2005 and 2009. Workplace violence accounts for approximately 18% of all violent crimes that occurs in the United States. As might be expected, police officers experience workplace violence at rates higher than people employed in almost any other occupation, while college and university professors are among those least likely to be victimized. This graph shows the rate of violent workplace victimization by occupation. In this graph, you can clearly see that the bartender are in majority, whereas followed by law, security, corrections, gas station, mental, hygiene, physician, taxi cab drivers, college and the preschool going. This shows the rate of violent workplace victimization by occupation, and the source is Erica Harrell, Workplace Violence, a report from 1993 to 2009, Washington, D.C., Bureau of Justice Statistics in 2001. Social response towards workplace crime includes prevention and control of the workplace violence. One approach is to use third parties to mediate disputes. The restorative justice movement advocates the use of mediation to resolve interpersonal disputes. Restorative justice techniques may work particularly well in the workplace where disputants know one another and tensions may be simmering over a long period. This may help control the rising tide of workplace violence. Another idea is a human resources approach with aggressive job retraining and continued medical coverage after layoffs. It is also important to use objective, fair hearings to thwart unfair or biased terminations. Perhaps rigorous screening tests can help identify violence-prone workers so that they can be given anger management training. Not all workplace violence is triggered by management-induced injustice. In some incidents, co-workers were killed because they refused romantic relationships with assailants or reported them for sexual harassment. Others have been killed because they got a job the assailant coveted. Irritated clients and customers have also been killed because of poor service or perceived slights. For example, in an incident in Los Angeles, a former patient shot and critically wounded 3 doctors because his demands for painkillers had gone unheeded. According to forensic psychiatrist Robert Simon, satisfying work environment provides people with life support, stability and a sense of achievement, which builds self-worth, camaraderie and a feeling of belonging. For some people, losing a job or believing they are about to is a devastating blow to the psyche. If their predicament is exacerbated by personal problems unrelated to work health problems, family difficulties, a lack of peer support, the person may feel cut off and alone. For such individuals, job stress creates a feeling of personal humiliation. How can they treat me like this? Who do they think they are? For some, suicide is an option. For others, it's retaliation. If I am going out, I am not going out alone. Some believe that their violent exploits will live on and teach employers a lesson. There are a variety of responses to workplace provocations. Some people take out their anger and aggression by attacking their supervisors in an effort to punish the company that dismissed them. This is a form of murder by proxy. Disgruntled employees may also attack family members or friends, misdirecting the rage and frustration caused by their work situation. Others are content with sabotaging company equipment, computer databases particularly being vulnerable to tampering. The aggrieved party may do nothing to rectify the situation. This inaction is referred to as sufferance. Over time, the unresolved conflict may be compounded by other events that cause an eventual eruption. It is, however, necessary to get involved in personal safety training programs to recognize and avoid violent situations. On facing such situations, the employees must report to the supervisors immediately in writing. A workplace is a temporary or permanent location where an employee executes any work-related tasks. Violence or aggression incorporates physical, mental and emotional abuse to an individual or to the property by another individual or a group. Social response towards workplace crime includes prevention and control of workplace violence. Thus, violence taking in any field should be dealt strictly and mitigated properly. Paul Calden, a former insurance company employee, walked into a Tampa cafeteria and opened fire on a table at which his former supervisors were dining. Calden shouted, "This is what you all get for firing me," and began shooting. When he finished, 3 were dead and 2 others were wounded. It has become usual to read of furious employees or former employees attacking co-workers or impairing machinery and production lines. Workplace violence is now considered the 3rd leading cause of occupational injury or death. Who engages in workplace violence? Typically, the offender is middle-aged male who faces termination in a deteriorating economy. The fear of economic devastation is developed in agencies such as Postal Service, where long-term employees fear loss of job because of automation and reorganization. In contrast, younger workers usually kill while committing a robbery or another felony. Now this is time for your self-study. If you want to learn more for enhancing your knowledge, you may log on to our website www.cec.nic.in for assignments, MCQs, quizzes and LORs and other materials. Till then, keep studying and goodbye.